The best way to understand the PMP process groups in the most efficient manner. Let's get into it. Hey, good morning everyone. My name is Max Mao. I am a PMP certified project manager. Want to share the best way that I found to study for the PMP process groups. So let's get into it. Per my PMP video where I go over my exact study guide in 2023, one of the resources that I highlighted was Ricardo Vargas's PMBOK Flow 6th edition YouTube video. The goal of this video is to explain how I took apart Ricardo Vargas's video, what I internalized, and the best way to get the most out of that study material. So definitely check out his channel and definitely check out that YouTube video. So here's exactly how I would approach studying Ricardo Vargas's video in order to understand the PMP process mapping groups. So step one, I would first just watch the video, maybe on 1.25 to 1.5 speed. Ricardo does a great job with going over all the different process groups. His logic and his methodology is really sound. The video is around 1 hour long. So if you make it around 1.5 speed, you can get through the material a lot faster. Literally during that time period, I would advise don't take in any notes. Just try to absorb and try to picture the process groups in your head. When you take notes for the first time, when you're reviewing some type of concept, oftentimes I feel like you're so busy with taking down the notes and the details that sometimes you'll miss some of the important details that he's actually telling you. Try to find a quiet space and some quiet time to literally just absorb all of the content that Ricardo's telling you. All right, step two, after you've reviewed the Ricardo Vargas video one time, the second time, I would encourage you to go to each of the process groups, try to picture all of the different processes that are in each of those groups. So for example, for initiation stage, that's when you would develop the project charter, and that's also when you would identify your stakeholders. So then I would ask myself, why does this make sense? Well, number one, the project charter is necessary in order to give the project manager the authority to start a project. So it's essentially that first document declares a project is actually happening. The second piece, identify your stakeholders. Why is it so important to identify your stakeholders? Well, if you think about it, after you've had that formal document declaring that a project is okay to move forward, then you need to figure out who exactly you'll be working with on the client side and on your internal team, as these are the ones who you will be handing off that final project or that final deliverable to for approval. So by identifying your stakeholders early on, you'll know more of the requirements, more of what's needed for that project. And then the idea is you'll be keeping them in the loop and you'll be engaging them throughout the project to make sure that the final outcome is exactly what they want. So that was an example of how I would picture the different process groups in each of the phases for initiation, planning, execution, controlling and monitoring, and then last but not least, closing. I love how Ricardo Vargas, he breaks off the different process groups into these little boxes that you're able to move around. One really awesome resource that he provides is from his YouTube channel, which I'll link in the description below. There's actually a website to where you're able to print out all of these boxes of the process groups, so you're able to map it yourself. So for step three, what I would highly recommend is after you've taken that first initial glance through the entire video, and then step two, you've started to break down each of the process groups into the different phases, and you're able to somewhat put them in the right phases, then I would recommend you to download his PDF of all the different process groups and then have a physical copy of those, cut them out, and be able to organize them in such a fashion to where you're able to actually map them out without any help. So how exactly did I make this little graph here? Let's go into it. Again, being a project manager, I wanted to pick the most cost-effective method to study. So this little board here, I believe this is a canvas that you can buy from Walmart, Target, any of your local arts and crafts stores. I believe it was around $4 or $3 for the board. I didn't even bother taking off the plastic wrapping on it because this is actually super helpful. I printed off a colored page of all the different process groups, cut them out, and then I used double-sided tape in order to stick it to the board. So because there's this plastic wrap on the back and the front, the process groups, they don't necessarily permanently stick to the board, so you're able to move them around in case you need to change it up. This is my MacGyver method in terms of being able to create a board, a physical board to study for. Step four, after you've done these different methods to study, to group the process groups in the different phases, I would then highly encourage encourage you to play the PMP process mapping game. So why is this game so helpful, and what is this game? So this process mapping game is a fun way to test your knowledge without having to necessarily take all the physical pieces and move them around. When you go onto the website, which I'll have linked in the description below, basically you're able to drag and drop the different processes in the process groups, and by doing this, you're able to test not only number one, your accuracy with dragging the right process group in the right phase, but also number two, you're able to see how much time it takes you. My first time playing the PMP process mapping game, this is, I believe, right after I watched Ricardo Vargas' video for the first time. It took me around 5.5 minutes, I believe, to just map everything together. I probably scored below 70% just because I didn't fully internalize all of the different process groups. Time and time again, I believe around my 7th time, I got 98%, and I was able to complete it in around 2.5 minutes. Really cool to see your progression, not only time-wise, but also accuracy, to really hold yourself accountable. So those are my main tips on how you can better understand the process groups for the PMP exam. Best of luck with studying for your PMP exam. If you haven't already checked out my video on the PMP 2023 study guide, click it in the link in the description below. It's a really cool video that I think will provide a lot of value to you. On that note, comment down below if you have any other questions. Thank you for watching, and best of luck with your studying.